Welcome to Crossing Darkness, a podcast about the role playing games set in the world of darkness and other tabletop games as well. We normally broadcast over Twitch every Sunday at 7 p.m. Central Time, but today we are doing our show at 3 p.m. to accommodate today's guest and are open to answering questions from chat during the show. This is season 3, episode 7, interview with Jacob. I'm your host, Frozen Fallout. My co-host is Motorori, who helped me create this podcast as well as a 40-person, 4-table Gen Con event. How's it going, Moto?
Pretty good. It's a lazy Sunday afternoon in Wisconsin here, and just getting mentally ready to go shovel my driveway because we got like 7 inches of snow last night.
Oh, yeah, there was a huge snowstorm here. That was crazy. So if you want to go ahead and introduce our guest here.
All right, so I'm introducing the guest because apparently Josh can't pronounce his name. How's it going, Jacob Klunder?
It is going very well, thank you very much, and thank you for trying to pronounce my name. I know it's not all that easy for people who don't know the language. I'm cool. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's so you've done a lot of work with the World of Darkness. When did you start getting involved in like the World of Darkness?
We are going back quite a while. We're going back to before the millennium. Yes, I am that old. I was very active on the old White Wolf forums and talked to a lot of people, including a guy by the name of Matthew McFarland, who got hired by White Wolf to write for them, and he did a book that I really liked, which explored some of the paths of enlightenment. And I was a huge fan of Path of the Scorched Heart and the True Bruja. They're my favorite bloodline. And when he wrote that, I sent him some stuff that I'd written about it, just show my perspective. And he said that he'd been tasked with working on the new edition of Dark Ages, and he thought I should actually officially apply to write for them, and so I did. And apparently he liked what I wrote because he hired me, and so I started writing for Dark Ages.
Oh, that's awesome! Wow.
Yeah, I was quite happy.
I know that was back in just after 2000.
That was just before 2000, I think, wasn't it?
Okay.
So just around the millennium. I'm not 100% sure when, because it is so long ago, and I'm old and can't remember things.
I know that feeling every time that we try and remember anything about our beginnings of our Gen Con event. We always are like, we forget what year it started in, and that was only like 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's 5 years ago. How many books did you end up writing on? How long did you work on those?
I managed to work officially on 3 Dark Ages books, Rite of Princes, High Clans and Low Clans, and then 2 books for modern Vampire the Masquerade, Ventrue Chronicles, and The Red Sign, and then I came back and I did a bit of work for Onyx Path. I wrote on Changing Ways for Werewolf, and The Cainite Conspiracies, the collection of short stories for Dark Ages.
Wow, that's unbelievable portfolio. That's epic. So were you involved in just writing like a section in a lot of these, or were you involved in the overall design, or what were like?
No, that was only sections. I got assigned a specific chapter or section of a chapter and a word count for that. So, for example, for High Clans, what I got was the chapter on bloodlines, and then the section on high-level disciplines. and I was given a word count for that, and then I was, of course, given freedom within that to develop to write what I wanted and develop that. But I was never in on the whole either pitching books, developing books, or anything like that.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. So you're currently doing a lot of stuff with Storytellers Vault, and you got a podcast that you started as well, the uh, World of Dark Ages.
Yeah, World of Dark Ages podcast, which is unsurprisingly about Dark Ages, specifically the entire Dark Ages line. Me and my co-host Peter, we are going through every single Dark Ages book, starting with the first Vampire, the Dark Ages core book, and ending with the last book published for Dark Ages 20th anniversary, and looking at each book both as we're both amateur historians, really interested, especially in medieval history, and we're both gamers and have played a lot of Dark Ages games. So we're looking at it both as historians and as gamers, talking about it and giving some hopefully some interesting insights into medieval history in general.
Yeah, that's something that I've always found to be really like awesome about the World of Darkness is how steeped in history it is, and it just is one of the games that I just really found to be like you could learn a lot about history just by playing this game.
Yeah, especially once you get into some of the later books, things like Three Pillars, Liege, Lord, and Lackey. Some of those books where they actually start describing medieval society, and also the setting books. I mean, it hasn't come out yet, but we just recorded Jerusalem by Night, and the history section on Jerusalem is amazing. You really get a great idea of the history of this very, very important city.
What's some of the things that you could highlight for us that would be something that that you kind of got from that?
From Jerusalem
Yep.
book. Oh, let's see if I can remember. Well, it's basically like I learned so much about the history of what you have to say is one of the most important cities in Western and Middle Eastern history. And one thing that I learned a lot about that I didn't know that much about was the Jewish history of Jerusalem, and the fall of the temples, and a lot of things that I could then relate to how Judaism is today, because of the things that happened there. So it gave a really cool insight. I already knew a lot about Jerusalem and the area during the time of the Crusades, both because it's a subject that interests me, but also because of a lot of research that I've been doing. But history before that, it taught me a lot, and I always love learning about world history. So I enjoy reading historical game books, not only as game books, but also because they usually include some fascinating points about history that you oftentimes don't get when you just read history books, because obviously game books wanna focus on the fun things that give you inspiration for things that you can use in your game.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it gives you a different way of it's kind of like you know, the way that TV and stuff kind of gives you like different kind of viewpoints on history, and this kind of can give you, an even, a different kind of point of view where you get to actually play in the history itself.
Yeah, that's the reason why I love Dark Ages. Dark Ages is a way for me to dive into a historical period that I find really interesting, that I really love, and to play with that and experience that from the safety of my own gaming table.
So, are you currently playing any Dark Ages games?
I am, yes, I am. I'm running one and I'm playing one. playtesting a book that I'm writing for Storyteller's Vault called Fall of Accra, which unsurprisingly is about the fall of the city of Accra, and with that the entire Crusader states, which it's a chronicle book set over 4 scenarios, and I was just about to finish it, and then this whole COVID thing happened, so we still haven't gotten the final scenario done, and it's a fun game. And then I'm a player in a very famous and for some people infamous chronicle that White Wolf put out called Transylvania Chronicles, which takes place from 1198 up until the early 2000s. It's the second time I'm playing it, and it's as much fun the second time around. It's a great chronicle, but according to my storyteller, it does need some work on the sort of individual scenarios in the books.
Yeah, we were talking about this a little bit before the show started, and yeah, it sounded like there was an instance where they talked about Auspex, and they had somebody spying on the group, and they even mention that if they don't like being spied on, that they should have Auspex. But then they
don't mention what happens if you do have Auspex, and that's one of a number of situations where you're just thinking, it seems like whoever wrote it didn't 100% think things through, and it also suffers from something that a lot of scenarios written around this time, not just by White Wolf, but by a lot of gaming companies. It suffers from bystander syndrome, where sometimes the player characters are just bystanders while the non-player characters are doing the cool stuff, and that's always something that you want to avoid.
Yeah, and especially, is that something that happens more at the beginning of it, or is that something that is kind of consistent throughout? Because I feel like that would be something that maybe would happen a lot with neonates, but with a long-term chronicle like that, when you become elders, that you would be the ones doing all the playing.
It's a bigger problem in the beginning, but throughout the chronicle, I'm assuming that everyone who knows their World of Darkness knows of the Malkavian Anatole, and he pops up every once in a while, and it got to the point where whenever the game involved some kind of big gathering, someone was hosting an Elysium, or we were invited to something, we draw lots about which one of us would be on Anatole duty, and that was the person whose job it was to go up to Anatole, record everything he spouted, because we knew that this would be important later, so that the rest of us could actually get on with doing something, because we couldn't get around the fact that in this game Anatole had to spout prophecy at us, and from time to time there was something useful, but there were talks about turning Anatole into a duct tape mummy and putting him in a basement somewhere, because we got really tired of that guy.
Yeah, that's yeah, I could see that being kind of irritating, where it's just him just spouting prophecy all the time, ruining things.
Yeah, it's I mean, our game master, our storyteller, she's done an amazing job both first time and this time around, but it's something that needs work, and it's something that I always keep in the back of my mind when I write scenarios, when I write chronicles, is how do I avoid the things that I found annoying in things that I have played, the officially written scenarios that I have played? How can I avoid those situations happening?
Yeah, I mean that's the big question, isn't it? Like, how do you actually write good stuff? It's hard.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, like, you want to include situations where you can move the game along, and where the characters can get the information that they need. So it's always walking a tightrope, and it won't. I have one scenario up on the Storyteller's Vault called New Blood, where I hope I've done a good job, and hopefully it won't be long before Fall of Akka comes out, and then people can look at that and judge whether I've done a good job or not in writing a scenario where there's not too much bystander syndrome.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. I'm definitely gonna have to check that out once it's out on Storyteller's Vault for sure. Definitely, once it does come out, shoot us a link of that too. We'll do a review.
Bob, if you want, once it's done, I can send you a review copy, because my plan is I generally haven't done much in the way of promoting my stuff, the stuff that I put on the vaults the first time around. But I've had a pretty long break. Been working on Fall of Akka and a couple of other scenario books, and I wanna try to get into more promotion. So basically, sending out advanced review copies and things like that. See how that goes, because I mean, there are people on the vault who actually make a living doing stuff both on the vault and other third-party platforms, like what's it called, Dungeon Masters Guild, I think. For me, it's just a hobby, so it's not like I need to make any money on what I'm writing in order to survive. For me, I write for the fun of it, and the money's just nice. I can spend that on weapons and gaming books and stuff like that.
Yeah, what is it like being part of the doing the story? Because I've been interested myself in getting involved in writing using the Storyteller's Vault, but it seems intimidating in the sense of building the PDF for it. Is there any kind of tips or tricks that you have for creating the PDF for the book itself? Like, if I have a lot of the actual material that I want to throw into it, how do I go about building an actual book?
In my case, I just write it down in a Word document. Spend a lot of time bitching about the fact that Word is not the right program for actually layouting and editing. Consider whether I should learn InDesign, decide I'm not going to bother learning InDesign, and publish a PDF that is not exactly as well edited as it might have been, but hoping that the content makes up for the poor editing. But once again, that's because I'm not someone who's trying to be making a lot of money off of this. People who are making a living off it, they produce some incredibly slick, very professional books. So in the end, I think what you have to do is you have to think, do you want to produce something where you put a relatively low price on it because you know that you're focusing on content and not so much on editing, or do you want to put together a really, really well produced product where you can then charge a higher price, but then you will need things like learning InDesign and possibly even shelling out for a professional copy editor, as we talked about before the stream started. Maybe even looking into hiring a professional artist to get some original art for your books, things like that. But in the end, I think, because this is a third-party platform provider, whatever, in the end, just try to put something together, try to put it out there, and invite comments and criticism, because you can only learn, and you can always do a second edition of what you've put out, where you polish everything up.
Yeah, definitely. That's something that, and they do give you like some stock art and stuff like that for what you're
bunch of art packs. One of the things I spend a lot of time doing when I'm putting together these books is scrolling through all the stock art, just trying to find an appropriate picture to put in. So I the only original art I use is for some of my covers, I've used photographs, and then had a very good friend of mine do some editing on those. And the cover of Denmark by Night, a friend of mine who's an amazing artist, he did that pro bono. He's a fellow Dane, just because he thought it would be cool to do the cover for Denmark by Night. And my plan is, I don't know if he's actually listening to this. If he is, this is the first time he'll hear of it. But my plan is to, I'm writing a book called Denmark Chronicles, which is a chronicle taking place in my Denmark by Night setting. And I want to hire him and actually pay him to do the cover for that one as well.
Awesome.
You still there, Josh?
Yep.
Yeah, I was just about to say, if you're saying something, I can't hear you.
Nope, sorry. Yep. So yeah, yeah, no, that's really awesome, dude. That's yeah, art is one of the things that I find to be really hard to, you know, because I personally am not good at art. So it's hard to come by, you know, good art to, you know, really work with, and you really need to pay. And anybody that says that, you know, people that are artists should work for free are crazy, because it's such a huge skill and so important and needed. I'm blown away by the concepts of anybody that is good at art. Like, I am horrible at it. There's nothing that I could do to it. I am more than willing to pay out for good art. Like,
which you have.
Yeah.
That's the picture that we've got up on our stream.
Well, yeah, yep, and yeah, I paid for that
other stuff.
Little werewolf.
Yeah, which reminds me, at some point I need to pay someone to do a better logo for our podcast, because right now it's just something that I slapped together when we were doing it. So by the second season of our podcast, I want to have a logo, and I have an idea of what I wanted to include, so I just need someone to do it for me.
Yeah, there's a lot of websites out there, and I'm sure Josh can tell you all about them. You say your second season of your podcast, so you intend to go forward after you finish all the Dark Ages books?
Well, basically, I'm thinking that the first season is the original Vampire, the Dark Ages. Second season is Dark Ages Vampire, and that line Werewolf, Mage, and then third season is going to be very short, because that's just going to be 20th anniversary edition. And from there, I mean, that's I'm thinking with the amount of books that have been made years ahead, but Peter and I, my co-host, we haven't really talked about what we want to do after that, but there is still Victorian Age Vampire that we could take a look at. There's Werewolf the Wild West, an amazing setting, played one of my all-time favorite games in that one, which we might want to take a look at. There are Dark Ages books on the Vault, most of them mine, but there are some that aren't mine. that we could take a look at. So we want to keep it going as long as we think it's fun and we think that people are listening.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I mean, that's kind of the idea we have here. We're just going to keep going until we decide to stop.
Yeah, as long as we have ideas for our side quests, and as long as we have books that we can look at in a historical perspective, then we're going to go on. And who knows, maybe there'll be a new edition of Dark Ages coming along at some point, and then we can look at that.
Yeah. So you're definitely, your area is World of Darkness games in historical settings, and
yeah. Well. Not Wraith. I've never been a Wraith player, but the other games, yeah, that's my thing.
Yeah. So I'm just curious: is there an era in history or a region that you think World of Darkness should have done a game line for? Like, is there one that you wish existed right now, or does it already exist in Dark Ages?
Well, when I look at my favorite periods, you've got the Viking Age that's covered by Wolves of the Sea, which we are very soon getting to. That's going to be a rather interesting podcast since we're both Scandinavians and history nerds. You've got the High Middle Ages. You can shade that into the Late Middle Ages without any problem. Victorian Age is a time that I love. So, and then you have Mage Sorcerer's Crusade covers the early Renaissance really well. So the only thing that I think could be interesting, and they did that in Requiem, is like Rome. Requiem for Rome. They had the chronicle that covered really towards the end, the fall of the Roman Empire. I think it could be interesting to focus on sort of either the Roman Republic or the height of the Roman Empire, the time of the 5 good emperors. That could be interesting. And I have a weakness for the time around the 30 Years' War. I think that's really, really interesting. But I don't know if that's necessarily going to be an interesting time to play Vampire the Masquerade. Or any other of the Dark Ages games. If anything, I think Wraith would be perfect for that because so many people died. But that's just because I like the 30 Years' War. That's one of the periods that I'm interested in.
And go ahead and enlighten the stupid American people who don't know what the 30 Years' War is.
So the 30 Years' War was, until World War I, the bloodiest war ever fought in Germany. I think it was something like a quarter of the German population that ended up dying either in the war or as a result of the war. It was from 1618 to 1648, if I recall correctly, and it started with a couple of papal legates getting chucked out of a window in a castle in Prague, the well-known defenestration of Prague. And then it ended up, it was a war between the Catholics and the Protestants. And the Danish king briefly got involved, got his ass kicked, got sent back to Denmark, and then the most famous Swedish king ever, Gustav II Adolf, or Gustavus Adolphus, got involved and started kicking ass and taking names. It's a really fascinating period. If you want to learn more about it, a book that I will recommend is what's it called? Is it 1628? 1632. Oh, now I want to look that up. But an American author by the name of Eric Flint. Is it 1632? Yeah, 1632 by Eric Flint. Check that one out. Because not only do you get a lot of cool information about the 30 Years' War, but you get it from the point of view of modern Americans. And I'll say no more, but I can highly recommend that book.
You know what's crazy? I think I have that book somewhere. I think it was given to me for free at Gen Con a couple years ago.
Well, it's a Bane book, and Bane will just throw free books at you. So most likely, yeah, Bane are well known for throwing free books at you. Oh, you found it.
I can see it. It's over on the shelf there. Eric Flint, 1632. Yeah. That's crazy.
Well worth a read.
Coincidence.
I'll have to look at it. Yeah. Yeah, no, 30 Years' War. And it sounds like there's enough stuff happening that you could probably write a chronicle for, you know, a lot of the various different World of Darkness.
Well, that brings to mind, though, do they have a Wraith Dark Ages book?
No, Wraith is the only core game line they never did a Dark Ages book for. There are talk on the Storyteller's Vault of someone putting together a Dark Ages Wraith book. I think the reason they did it, I don't know that much about Wraith, but I'm thinking one of the reasons they did it is because Wraith wouldn't be all that different in the Dark Ages time frame, but I don't know enough about Wraith to talk about that. But yeah, they did Dark Ages Vampire, Werewolf, Mage, Inquisitor, and then they did Dark Ages Fae, which is the Dark Ages version of Changeling, which is my second most favorite Dark Ages line. I love Dark Ages Fae.
Interesting. Yeah, that's so because there's 19 because they did World War One, I think, for Wraith, and then
Yeah,
because
Wraith the Great War.
and 1962 or 19 sorry 1632. Yeah, I'm horrible with numbers, as you can tell. 1632 sounds like a perfect time period for a Wraith thing to be, because they kind of based it on like periods of great death, that they tried to line
Yeah,
things
and
up
a
with.
lot of people died. Like when they sacked Magdeburg, it was in the tens of thousand people that died there, if I recall correctly. So yeah, that was a time of mass death. So if anybody hears anybody who's listening is a Wraith fan and writer, set something Wraith 30 Years War, and if you want to get some info on the history, you can hit me up for it. I'm always up for talking about the 30 Years War.
Well, we're actually starting a project on Wraith. We were going to do a game, but this might be an interesting side project as well. No promises,
Yeah,
of course. We got a lot on our plate right now, but this is
I'm
this is
currently
a very
trying to.
interesting opening. I feel like that needs to be filled, and if somebody doesn't beat me to it, I might do it myself.
Look
Currently
into
trying
the
to. So
look into the sack of Magdeburg if you want a great slaughter. That was a terrible event.
Hmm. Oh, that's awesome. Cool.
yeah, the other thing about Wraith that I think is interesting is that because Wraiths are kind of immortal to an extent, whenever you die, let's say if you died in the one of the mass deaths of the 30 Years War, the people in power that you're showing up in the Shadowlands with, the people who are currently in power in the Shadowlands, they could be from 200 years ago. And
Yeah,
so
I mean,
there's cultures, like, they don't give a shit about current culture. They might give like more of a they might care more about the culture that existed and the hierarchies that existed 200 years previous.
yeah, and that's one of the things that I really like about vampire is the whole vampires. They don't age. They can be from a very long time ago. So uh, you can get a mix of people from different time periods mixing together, which I find interesting. It's one of the things that I like playing in various games, tabletop and LARP, playing characters who are a bit out of their time and trying to figure out how the culture and mores and morale and whatever when they were mortals and when they were being formed, how does that work when they hit modern times? That's always a fun thing to play with.
Yeah, I really
Yeah.
liked the concept of playing really old characters. Like whenever I played in LARPs and stuff like that, even if I had to still play a neonate, I'd be like, well, can I still be from Rome? Like I'll just be asleep during the entire time, like so I don't have all the experience and stuff. So I don't need to I don't want to play a really powerful character, but I'd really love to play a character that's from Rome. And then I get to come and tell everybody that what they're talking about is not Rome. Like, because even in vampire, in modern age, you're not going to run into 1,000, 2,000-year-old vampire usually, unless there's, altering circumstances, such as like with my characters would be like, I would be in torpor for most of that period of time and be one of those like deep sleeper torpor type characters that just sleeps off hundreds of years at a time, wakes up for a day, checks it out, goes, nope, this isn't what I'm here for yet. I'm gonna go back. I like to play the Malkavian prophecy type characters, so I always have a lot
Duct
of
tape
fun.
mummy. You will end up as a duct tape mummy. Trust me. No, like one thing, one dream that I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to do it, but a dream scenario of mine would be to go to a vampire LARP in America as an older vampire from Denmark, from some period in Danish history. Obviously, the Viking Age would be the best if I could do that, and just show up and using my knowledge of Danish history and culture and play that character. I've done something slightly similar, and it was a lot of fun. I was at DragonCon one year playing LARP. DragonCon in Atlanta, for those of you who don't know, amazing convention, but not much of a role-playing convention. But still, there was a LARP there, which was set during World War II. And so I played a Danish sailor who had been stranded it took place in England, who had been stranded in England when the Nazis invaded Germany. So I got to actually play a Danish person among non-Danes. So it was because, if we have a game where we're playing in Denmark and we say, okay, this game is set in America, then all the other players are still Danish, so they know how Danes are. But in this case, I got to play a Dane amongst Americans, which was kind of fun, though. In the end, it ended up killing my character because suddenly there were German paratroopers, and I said that my character was from the south of Denmark, which meant obviously he spoke German. So he started speaking German to the paratroopers in order to survive. And one of the other player characters recognized that I was speaking German and shot me.
Oh no!
Well, it was the end of the game, and we just thought it was the perfect ending. I'd survived everything else. It was a Cthulhu scenario. I'd survived everything else, and then I get shut down by one of the other players. That was the perfect ending to that.
Yeah, sometimes it's about the story and not about. A lot of this is it's all about the story. And one shots, I think, really give you that ability to do and have epic things kind of happen to you like that.
Yeah, it's become the sort of the motto of what's called Nordic style LARP. A lot of people are talking about play to lose, which I don't like that terminology, but the idea is don't play to win. Be aware that losing can be just as much fun as long as you're having a really cool dramatic game. I mean, you win the game not by your character achieving all their goals, but by everyone, including yourself, having an enjoyable time. And that's really, that's my motto also when it comes to role playing is everyone should have an enjoyable time. We get together for X amount of hours. If afterwards people say, you know what, I could have spent that time better watching a movie, then you failed. If everybody goes, you know what, this was a good use of my time, then you've succeeded, no matter whether or not your character met their goals.
Absolutely. And yeah, I think that's something that is something that really translates well into how you should look at LARP personally. Is one of those, like, if you're going to go into LARP and you're all you want to do is fulfill your character's goals and dominate the game type of thing, I feel like your energies are better spent on trying to be involved in and create an epic story, and not necessarily being as a player being 100% driven behind success for your character.
Yeah, the thing is, you can have, I think, or at least I can have just as much fun epically failing as having epically succeeding, because for me it's all about the stories you tell after the game. If you after the game can tell a great story and then this happened and I just got completely wiped out, that can be just as much fun as telling a story of how you won. Not everybody feels that way, but I think in a LARP situation, you have to remember, in tabletop, you're sitting together with 2, 3, 4, 5 other players. Mm-hmm. So it's easy to please everyone. In a LARP situation, depending on the size of the LARP, like the biggest one I've been to was, I think, about 200 people or so. You kind of want everyone to have a good experience, especially considering how much money we spend on that one.
Have you gone to any of the castle LARPs?
Yep, that was one of them. That was the first convention of Thorns LARP in Poland. Is that 5 years ago or something like that? Can't quite remember, but yeah, that was mind blowing. Like an actual, honest to God castle. You have, I think, around 200 players, everyone, obviously, because you spent quite a bit of money to attend it, everyone in amazing costumes. The Tsimish and the Nosferatu in awesome prosthetics, amazing props and everything. I am so looking forward to going back there once it starts back up, because that was the second greatest LARP experience I have ever had, and I'm never going to forget it.
Yeah, I really want to go to one of these. How is it? Do you feel that it's prohibitively expensive to go to one of these? I mean, if you have to include like a plane ticket as well, I guess over there.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I got together with a bunch of other Danes, and we rented a car and drove down there. So we were 8 or 9 people. We rented a fairly big car, so we shared the car rental. So for us, that wasn't really that bad. But I can imagine if you want to fly over from the US, and at the same time, I mean, if you're flying from the US to Europe, you probably want to spend a bit more time. So you're also going to have to budget with spending a bit more time either in Poland or wherever you want to go, because it would be kind of cheap just to go for a LARP. So
right, yeah.
I've heard it referred to as holiday LARPs, which is basically, instead of going on holiday, you go to this LARP. And when you look at it that way, it costs about the same as going on holiday, really.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna have to take a look into that, because I've always wanted to see, and be involved in one of the like super epic LARPs. The most that I've done is Gen Con. There were I want to say maybe like 50 people maximum that were involved, and we had like all the World of Darkness involved in it. But to see something like the Convention of Thorns, like, would just be with, you said there was like 200 people there?
I think it was something like that in the end. I'm not 100% sure, because I didn't obviously interact with everyone, but there was a lot of people. If you go online and you look up, if you just write Convention of Thorns or COT LARP, and look at pictures, you'll see just how many people there were, what costumes they were wearing, and props, and the location and everything. Like, I mean, we had our pictures taken in front of this mind-blowingly gorgeous fireplace by a professional photographer. Those are still some of my absolute favorite pictures of me ever. I can highly recommend to anyone who's into LARP and who want a great experience. Check out if Convention of Thorns LARP returns. Try that out. On the other hand, one thing I would love to try is a LARP in the US called The Night in Question, which is a Sabbath LARP. I mean, have either of you been there, or what do you know about it? Because I only know what I read on Facebook from people who've been there, or some of the people who are doing the LARP that I know, and I really want to go at some point.
Yeah, I want to say they've either only done it once or possibly twice. I think
they've done it twice, or either they've done it twice, or they were going to do it twice, and then COVID happened.
Yeah, that might be it. Is that High Level Games with Josh Heath, or am I
yes?
Wrong?
No, it's not High Level Games. It's what's it? Why can't I remember what it's called? It's brain fart. I can't remember what it's called.
Jackalope Club.
Jackalope, that's right. I kept wanting it to be wow, my mind isn't working at all. But yeah, it's Jackalope Games, yeah. So I would love to go to that, but every time I look at going to the US for something, there's always Dragon Con, and I can only time and money I can only afford to do one big thing in America. It's the same reason why I've never been to Gen Con. It's like I could go to Gen Con, but there's also Dragon Con, and I really love Dragon Con.
Yeah. So I just looked it up. They do have it scheduled for September 11th, 2021. Wow, great date. September 11th. That, you know what? That might be intentional because it's a Sabat game.
Yeah. But yeah, it's. I mean, if I ever become like really rich, I'm just gonna go to all the LARPs and all the conventions and not worry about time or money. But
So that's our goal.
chance
Like with everything that we're
we've talked
doing
about
here,
that.
is that if we could just base our life around gaming and make enough that I don't want to be rich. I want to be powerful. I just want to go to all the conventions, and
yeah,
and that's my life.
Yeah,
It's going to conventions, hanging out with cool people like you, and running, games and just playing games all my life. That's
yeah. I'm gonna put it out there. I have a podcast. If anyone wants to sponsor me to go to a LARP, I will promote it. I will review it. I will talk about it on the podcast. No problem whatsoever. I am down for that.
well. How much
So,
does it cost to get you into America?
uh, it's been so long since I. No, wait, it's not been that long since I was last there. I generally, when I went to DragonCon, I basically said a month. I budget a month's wages on that, but that's including hotel, flight, and everything. So last time I was in the U.S., I was in New York, and I think a a round trip was just around $1,000 in Danish. But then you also have to remember that in general in Denmark we make more money than you do in America.
Hmm.
So it's not a direct. You can't directly translate that, but it was something like that if I recall correctly.
Well, that's not too
So
bad.
something around. No, it's. I think it's pretty good. I mean, like I said, it was. I think it was around a round trip was somewhere around 6,000 Danish, which is a third of what I make in a month. And I don't work full time, and I work in a rather low paying job. So that, to put it into context.
Yeah, no, I would love to. One of the things that I definitely want to do with what I'm doing here is try and create a community of just people hanging out together and going to conventions and seeing each other. So if you go to Dragon Con consistently, definitely
I
will have
did.
to
I don't
check
do
that
that
out.
anymore. Yeah, I used to go to DragonCon every year, and then it was sort of, yeah, but it's 2 weeks vacation I have to spend. My wife doesn't like going,
Ooh.
so it's 2 weeks away from my wife. It's quite a bit of money, and there are these LARPs coming up. So instead, I started spending my time and money budgeting on going to these big castle LARPs in Poland, and then I managed one of them. And then when I was ready to go to two in 1 year, the company that made the LARPs went belly up. And then another company brought back Convention of Thorns. And that was supposed to run in 2020.
Ooh.
Yay.
Yeah, I do remember seeing stuff for Conventions of Thorns for 2020 before the pandemic hit, and I got really lucky with a wife that loves to go to Gen Con. So, like, that's our yearly, vacation that we always make sure
Yeah.
that we try to go to. Um, and unfortunately, I don't know if it's going to happen this year or not at this
No.
point.
At this
Yeah,
point,
see,
even if it does happen, we're probably not going to go, just
yeah.
because
See,
it might not be safe.
I've always thought, I'm a gamer more than anything else. I should go to Gen Con. I really should. But the first and only American convention I ever went to was Dragon Con. And now I have a bunch of people I know go to Dragon Con. My favorite band plays at Dragon Con. And it's just, it's become like, if I go to the US, I'm doing Dragon Con, I'm doing cosplay, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Well, if you do make it back to America for Dragon Con, definitely let us know.
I will. My plan is to go in 22 or 23 for one last hurrah. I promised myself before I turn 50, I'm going back to Dragon Con one last time.
What's that band that plays at Dragon Con? And then also, how would you describe Dragon Con? Because I've heard people talk about it, but I'm not entirely sure.
Okay, so the band that plays at Dragon Con, I call them the Crew Shadows. The lead singers pronounced it Crew Shadows. C-R-U umlaut, like my last name, but that's a heavy metal umlaut, so it doesn't actually change the sound of the U, but C-R-U-X Shadows. They are a dark wave band, and if you don't know what dark wave is, just think of them as a goth band. And they play every year at Dragon Con, and they pack a huge... and they are an amazing band to see live. They're also, I like, obviously, since they're one of my favorite bands, I like their music, listening to the music when it's not live, but seeing them live is an amazing experience. So they're really cool. As for describing Dragon Con, the thing is, like, I don't have anything to compare it to because I haven't been to any other American conventions, but Dragon Con is a science fiction, fantasy, and pop culture convention that is not run like the big Comic Cons are. It's not run by any industry or anything. It is it's more fan run. So you're not going to get like the huge, newest, biggest stars and the big premieres and the big trailers. But on the other hand, they put in pretty much anything you want. I was talking to a guy who was involved with it at one point. He said, well, we have wrestling here. And the reason we have wrestling is because at one point, some of the people who went to Dragon Con said, it could be fun if we had wrestling. And then they went, okay, we're going to reach out and contact some wrestlers and see if they want to put on a show. So they did. Also, it takes place in hotels. So Dragon Con never closes. From what I understand, things like Gen Con takes place in a convention center that closes. Is that right?
Well, it actually doesn't close, but a lot of stuff just stops happening after midnight-ish.
And they do expand out into hotels and stuff like that. But yeah, it is one of those things that it definitely calms down very much during the midnight hour, but there's always something to do at Gen Con.
Yeah, Dragon Con does not calm down after midnight. There's an unspoken rule at Dragon Con that if you have your kids out after 10 p.m., then it's on you what they see. There's no nudity, but there will be pasties. And it's, like I said, it takes place only in hotels, including open bars. So, there's a lot of drinking going on. It has a reputation of being a relatively adult convention. I know that there is a lot of casual sex going on. There is a lot of hookups, and there are a lot of interesting events. My favorite probably being the kilt blowing.
Oh.
All right, so there is a webcomic called The Devil's Panties, and the young lady who does The Devil's Panties, she lives in Atlanta, so she went to a Dragon Con, and she realized something, which incidentally I'm wondering if you can explain, but apparently when it comes to conventions in America, upwards of a third of all men will be wearing kilts.
Yes.
Why?
It's not that high, but yeah.
There's a lot of kilt wearing. It is way above and beyond what you would averagely think, and I think that just comes from there might be a Braveheart wave of humans that have watched Braveheart and other kind of
I am a history buff. I hate Braveheart.
Braveheart.
Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. And not saying that that's a historically representation in any way, shape, or form. Just the craziness that happens in pop culture of all of a sudden, like, you've got a bunch of people who have seen something or heard about it that you normally wouldn't be involved in this. But then they get into gaming because of it and stuff like that too. And kilts are cool. They are. I love wearing a kilt. I really do. It's. I understand why women wear skirts, because wearing a kilt, especially when it's hot, is really, really nice. And I think more people should do it. So, but back to the story. So she saw all of these men wearing kilts. So she brought a leaf blower. and check to see if it was a kilt or a skirt, right?
She wasn't quite checking whether or not they were regimental, but that was the idea. And then it went from she brought a kilt blower to it actually being an event. So now it's that was due to some let's say, unfortunate circumstances involving regimental kilts, it got moved to its own separate room, and they check ID so that they know that anyone who goes in there is 18 or older. And then what you do is, as a guy, yes, women can do it as well, but I've never really seen it. So guys come up, they sign up, and then they go on stage, they get blown, get your mind out of the gutter, and then they go down again. And when you're up on that stage, the room is packed with anywhere from 75 to 90% women. And when you go up on stage, they will scream. You will feel like a piece of meat. And as a balding, overweight dude in his mid-40s, that's an ego boost. Like, because you can have some seriously hot guys wearing nothing but a kilt and their six-pack go up there, and the women will cheer for them, but they'll cheer just as much for you coming up there with your beer belly and your bald spot. It's just the fact that you go on stage, and that's amazing. But I think that, man. Well, the thing is, like, I think that sums up DragonCon quite a bit, because it is, this convention where things are really loose and really fun. And I don't know how it is at, say, Comic Cons or things like that, but I have had a lot of fun one-on-one interactions with celebrities at DragonCon, and I've gotten fairly close to some celebrities, and they seem to be fairly chill. So there's not a whole lot of, there is role playing going on, there's tabletop gaming and LARPing, but it is primarily a cosplay and science fiction and fantasy convention. So I've like I said, I've done some LARPing there, but when I'm there, I mainly cosplay and go to panels.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with Onyx Pathcast. It's the one that Onyx Path does. The podcast.
I don't think I've ever heard it, but I know of it.
Yeah, I don't listen to every episode, but it's pretty good. It's got Dixie Cochran, Matt Dawkins, and the other guy, I can't remember his name right now. But we met him in Milwaukee when we met all of those people. But they did an episode about DragonCon, and I think it was Dixie, who I think still lives
she's been.
Area.
Yeah, I think she does. I got to know her at DragonCon before she started working for Onyx Path. She's a fellow fan of the Crew Shadows.
Oh yeah, she's pretty cool. But she basically described it as, if there is a fandom for something, it will exist at DragonCon. It's where you go for the fandom gathering. Yeah,
and that's why I describe it not just as a fantasy and science fiction, but also pop culture convention. Because even stuff that isn't, within the broad umbrella of science fiction and fantasy, it's still going to be there. I remember I met a security guard at a mall between two of the hotels who was over the moon that the actress who played Jeannie in I Dream of Jeannie was going to be there, because it was like, oh, she was my crush when I was younger, which I can understand, because I remember when they showed I Dream of Jeannie here in Denmark. That was she was quite pretty.
Yeah, DragonCon is definitely one that I would like to get to.
Yeah, I've never been to Atlanta. So is there any? So Atlanta has casinos, right? Unless I'm.
That's Atlantic City.
That's Atlantic City.
Okay, never mind. I'm an idiot.
I
knew I was in the wrong universe.
I'm Danish, and I know it's Atlantic City.
I knew I was in the wrong universe. I gotta
Atlanta is Georgia.
Yeah.
The state.
It's in the south. It's not off the south.
It's not okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's it's hot. It's humid, and one last cosplay story, and then we'll get back to role playing. But I went there at one point. It is so amazing. Every year at DragonCon, they have a parade down. I was about to say Main Street, but it's Atlanta, so it's probably Peachtree Street, because everything is Peachtree Street in Atlanta. people who've been to DragonCon or live in Atlanta will know this. But they have this huge parade through downtown central Atlanta. They close off a huge section of central Atlanta, and then DragonCon has a parade with people in cosplay parading, and people line the streets to watch, and children are there. So a lot of the parade goers bring candy, and it's such an amazing experience. And one year, I marched with a group called Obscurus Crusade, which is a Warhammer 40k cosplay group, and I was cosplaying something called an Imperial Commissar, and their signature look involves a greatcoat. Now, what I had chosen for my greatcoat was made out of rubberized canvas. It is Labor Day, and it is Atlanta. I was sweating a lot. I learned from my mistakes and didn't do that a second time, because I don't know how much weight I'd lost when I'd finished the parade, but I'd sweated buckets.
Yeah, so, it's actually similar to Gen Con, because Gen Con is in the middle of the summer in Indianapolis, and I did some cosplay back in the day. It's important to plan ahead for that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So, and speaking, before we jump back to gaming real quick, speaking of cosplay, there's, on your Instagram, you have the Viking outfit that you have with you sitting on the Game of Thrones Iron Throne.
Yeah, that
is an epic looking picture, dude.
That was fun. That was the second Copenhagen Comic Con. Sadly, they're not doing Comic Cons in Copenhagen anymore. They did it 2 years, and then they realized that they can't make enough money to do it in Copenhagen, which was really sad, because it was a great opportunity to cosplay. But yeah, I have this barbarian semi-Viking outfit, and it was day 2. Day 1, my cosplay was something that only worked in Denmark, because if I shave my head, and I have this rather large beard, and if I shave my head and wear round glasses, I bear a striking resemblance to a former Danish prime minister who had the most famous election poster in Danish history. So for my cosplay on day 1, I made that election poster and walked around with that, which was really fun, because none of the young kids had any idea what I was doing. So for day 2, I was like, I'm going to just do a casual cosplay to go with my wife. So I did this Viking cosplay. I had some painted on facial tattoos, and I think I did some blood effects as well. And then this huge LARP hammer and this outfit. And they had a replica of the Iron Throne, because HBO was heavily promoting Game of Thrones, and if I recall correctly, it's the guy who played Euron Greyjoy, because he's Danish. He was there at the convention, so that makes sense as well. And you could go sit on the throne and have your picture taken. And I thought, okay, wearing what I'm wearing, I'm going to be sitting on the throne. So I sat down and did my best to look badass.
So was it a real, iron, made out of metal throne, or what did it feel like sitting on it?
I think it was some kind of either hard plastic or resin or something like that. It was pretty hard. I could have used a cushion, because I'm old, but it was a nice visual. And it's a fun costume that I like doing, because it's fun to. It's easy to throw on. I did it 1 year where I work. I work with kids, age 6 to 10 years. And in Denmark, we have something called fastelavn, which is sort of like Halloween, except when you dress up, it doesn't have to be scary. And it takes place in February. And I basically put on that costume, and then I took some blood effect paint from Warhammer. They have a really cool blood effect paint, and I painted my entire face with that, so it looked like my face was completely covered in blood, and I was dressed like that for the entire day. All of the kids thought it was real fun. Whenever some of the parents came, they did a double take.
Yeah, I can see that happening.
Yeah, but I mean, at that point, most of the parents knew what I was like anyway, so they did a double take, and they were like, "Okay, it's Jacob. We're not surprised."
So, One of the things that always interests me, because I'm a huge Mage fan, but I haven't really delved really deep into the Dark Ages Mage stuff, is the whole concept of the Order of Reason versus the traditions back in the day. And I always like to kind of, for anybody that knows about this kind of stuff, and it sounds like you have like at least an idea of what's going on during that time period, probably much better than I do. How do you feel about that fight during that time period? What do you feel about it moving forward? Are you on the side of the technocracy, or are you on the side of the traditions?
Well, to answer the last one first, I'm on the side of the technocracy if they weren't so damn fascist about what they were doing. But yeah, I love technology, I love science, I love the advance of it, and so. But in Dark Ages Mage, interestingly, they don't have that at all. They which I think, considering that it's set in 1230, is a very good idea. That they don't have any order of reason or anything going. It is very much only the really magical paradigms. The closest thing that gets to that are the they call the Alibatiners, the Batini, something like that. The Middle Eastern tradition. Otherwise, you have the spirit talkers and the Valdermen and that sort of thing. The celestial chorus, I think they call something
Order
else.
of Hermes, and
Order of Hermes,
pillars,
yeah,
right? That you don't have spheres, you have pillars.
No, exactly.
It's
It's you can see that they have taken more of an inspiration from Ars Magica, and they're keeping it very, very magical, which I like. I mean, I have to be honest. Of all the games that I've played all the 5 core games except Wraith. I've never gotten to play Wraith, and of the 4 that I've played, Mage is my least favorite. But that's because the whole paradigms and things, it never clicked for me. But I really do love Sorcerer's Crusade. Is a lot of fun, especially if you play it. Not really steampunk because it's before Steam, but maybe Clockwork Punk or something like that. That's been a lot of fun. And Dark Ages, on the one hand, I think that's really interesting, and they've done a lot of fun stuff with it. But also, if I'm going to play Wizards in the Middle Ages, I'm going to play Ars Magica instead. But I really like what they did with Dark Ages Mage. I think it's a really interesting take on Mage.
Well, I like how they, like the concept of Mage is really around the concept that, like, I mean, the Order of Hermes was like horrible, like during all of this time period. Like they're almost like a scene as to why, if I was looking at it, from that kind of like, omniscient point of view that I have right now of, my idea of what the hell's going on with all of this stuff. When I'm GMing, I really feel like the Order of Reason had a really good point in the beginning. That, during the Dark Ages,
definitely.
The Celestial Choir, or what was, to become the Celestial Choir, and what was the Order of Reason, which had been around for an extremely long time, and most of mages were just ruling the world. Like mages were ruling the world, vampires were ruling the world. Werewolves were just demolishing you if you went outside of the city. Like this whole concept of like the supernatural ran the world more in the Dark Ages, and in modern times you still have the supernaturals ruling everything. It just has I believe, like the division that needed to be created between what really runs the world and what runs the supernatural world, and trying to separate them as much as possible, because they are much more separated in the world of today than they were back in the Dark Ages, for sure.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, I'm all for the advance of science and technology, as long as, but from what I remember of Mage, the technocracy was presented as relatively fascist. But other than that,
the connection to World War II Nazis, that the technocracy will always stain, that they weren't the creators of or anything, but once the plan started going, they were like, you know what, we could usurp this plan for good, and it's one of the main reasons why eventually the virtual adepts were like, yeah, we're outsies, like, that and they're killing of their leader, so.
But yeah, I think of the games that I have played, Mage is the one that I know the least about, both the meta plot and the various factions and things like that. I know more about the Dark Ages version of it than anything else. I did a lot of reading up when I wrote my Dark Ages Mage book.
Yeah, I find I'm fascinated with Mage more. I got involved with Vampire first, and then I learned about Mage, and then everybody around me that was playing was like, I have no idea what the spheres are, and I don't understand that system, and I don't understand Paradigm. I'm not playing that game. And and slowly but surely throughout my entire lifetime, I have forced my friends to play the game with me, and the ones that like playing it have continued playing it, and the ones that don't like playing it don't play it. We play D&D and other games together.
You have forced your Paradigm upon them.
Yes. Well,
yeah,
I'm the GM.
Amusingly, technically, the first World of Darkness game I played was Mage because I was playing with a guy who had the Mage core book, but he only used it as a generic system to run a mortal horror campaign that had nothing to do with the World of Darkness. So you could say technically I played Mage because he used the Mage book for that. But the first real World of Dark Ages, I've been doing my podcast, so that's sticking in the mind. The first real World of Darkness game that I played was Vampire the Masquerade, and Vampire, especially in the Dark Ages iteration, is still my favorite, and for my wife it's Werewolf. So those are the two games that we have going.
Yeah, Mike is a huge Werewolf fan.
Werewolf was my first. Well, not technically, it was kind of the same. I did Mage first, but then the first big Chronicle that I played in was a Werewolf game.
I always find it interesting when people come into the World of Darkness and they're like, the first game I played was Mage, and I'm just like, what? Like, who are you? Are you?
That's probably why we get along so well, is because I've played like hundreds of hours of Mage, and so we. I think also understand each other.
Mage is a bit more difficult to approach because with Vampire, it's like. You say vampire and people already have an idea what's going on. You say werewolf, sure, the werewolves in Werewolf are quite different from werewolf mythology, but it's easy enough to give you an idea of what's going on. Mage is heavily involved with philosophy and perceptual reality and things like that. I think that can be a bit hard to get into. For people who will also have to learn a system and the World of Darkness. So I think, entry level Vampire and Werewolf is easier.
So this is where I think that Mage went kind of wrong on the way that they did it. In the sense that I think that premiering the traditions as being the protagonist and the antagonist being the technocracy was the wrong way to start the game line to a certain degree. Like, I get that it came from Ars Technica, or not Ars Technica.
Ars Magica.
Ars Magica. But and so they wanted to, and they had it in Vampire with the Tremere, and, they kind of wanted to make sure that they brought this game to life. But I find it's really easy to get people to believe, or not believe, but understand the technocratic paradigm. It's simple. Yeah. It's easy. Everybody kind of because we live it. Like, there's rarely a person that you're going to run into that's going to be like, oh, I really understand, or like can jump into a paradigm that's not technocratic.
Yeah, but also, I think when Mage was made, they couldn't make it any other way because of the fact that the way the World of Darkness was being portrayed there, it was being portrayed with a sort of of leftist / green background radiation almost. Like you can definitely see,
like with werewolf.
Yeah, it comes very much to the surface with werewolf, but there are also shades of it in vampire. And so with mage, they go whole hog with they went whole hog with it and say, okay, the people who are fighting against the advancement of science and technology are right, because the people who are advancing science and technology are these mostly bad people, and that was the way it was presented in the first books. And I don't know if they've put on a more nuanced. I'm assuming they have put on a more nuanced approach to it later, because they've in all their books become much more nuanced in what they were doing. I mean, that's the thing with the World of Darkness. They have so many years of baggage that comes to the fore. I mean, if you just have to look at the followers of Set that come from a time when they were, Set, he is the god of snakes, and they are serpent worshippers and things like that. And then everyone who has to write for it since then have had to figure out a way around that, knowing that Sutek was not the god of snakes. So it's changed and morphed. The same thing we're getting to it with the books that we're looking at in World of Dark Ages podcast right now, where they're starting to move away from the quote unquote gypsy stereotype of the Ravnos, which is incredibly offensive, and moving towards a much more nuanced version of the Ravnos, which is really nice, because it's rather uncomfortable to go through book upon book where the Ravnos are portrayed as these stereotypical people and not Roma.
Mm-hmm.
Never mind the fact that the Roma were not in Europe in the Dark Ages timeline.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely it's history in the portrayal of how to advance the World of Darkness to become not so, like, because like you said, they started off with a lot of really niche stereotypes, and there is a theme throughout the book of or throughout the World of Darkness of stereotypes being a thing, and being like every single clan, every single werewolf tribe, I believe, even has like a stereotype section where they're like, hey, this is the stereotype that I think of this. But I think White Wolf does a good job of later on, like you said, moving away from that stereotype and saying that the stereotype is a stereotype. It exists in the World of Darkness if you include these kind of things, but they're not the stereotype. And here's
that's not what they are.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, that's one of the things that I like about 5th edition. If people have heard our latest side quests podcast episode, I talk about the fact that I'm not the biggest fan of Vampire 5th edition. Not saying that Vampire 5th edition is bad, I'm just saying it's not for me. But I think they've done some good work getting away from those stereotypes, which is something that we see all across the role-playing sphere at the moment. You have the whole discussion about whether or not orcs are always chaotic evil in Dungeons and Dragons, where a lot of people are saying, look, we see this as a negative stereotypes about non-white savages. And a huge discussion in the LARP community here in Denmark is blackface drow or dark elves, which, there's been some drow specific scenarios, and there have been some fantasy LARPs that have included drow, where they are taking the Dungeons and Dragons Forgotten Realms version of them. I don't know if that was the first time they looked like that, but that's where I see the whole black skin, white hair, Drista Urden look. And there have been talk about this being somewhat equivalent to blackface, simply because these dark elves are evil slavers and they have dark skin. So that's become a huge discussion in the LARP community here in Denmark.
Interesting. Yeah, that's I never really thought about that, but yeah, that is a really good.
Yeah, see, I didn't think about it either, because I was always thinking, well, it's not a natural skin color. They're not doing what blackface was. They're not painting themselves as people of African ancestry.
Right.
But then you have people of African ancestry here in Denmark who are saying, we see it as blackface. It affects us. And then I'm like, okay, well, if you're saying it, then I'm down with that, because I'm a white guy, so I cannot, understand how that makes you feel. But if you're telling me that this makes you uncomfortable because you see this as parallel to blackface, then it shouldn't be done.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Yeah, the gaming community is definitely coming to terms with a lot of stuff right now. And in general, I think the spirit of most people in the gaming world goes in the right direction. So
yeah, I think so too. I mean, there are still people who will complain. There are people who will complain that Pathfinder 2nd Edition is calling it ancestry rather than races, and there are people who will keep saying, "Look, we're painting ourselves as Drow, a fantasy race. We're painting ourselves coal black, not trying to look like people of African ancestry," and so on and so forth. There will be people who do that, but I feel like we're moving towards something better, and I want my hobby to be inclusive. I want everyone, regardless of their gender identity, regardless of their ethnicity, regardless of their political or religious standpoint, I want them to feel accepted, happy, and safe in this hobby, because I love my hobby. I mean, I went through the classic depressed teenage period, and what really got me out of that was role-playing. The reason I met the woman that I love and that I've been married to now for 20 years is through role-playing. Role-playing has done so much good for me, so I really want this hobby to be for everyone. So I may sound a bit idealistic, but it's something that I really, really want, and I really, really like to see.
No, I agree. I mean, the gaming is where we can all come together, and from my point of view, everybody games. Whether it's poker, watching Jeopardy and shouting at the screen the correct answer. There's a place for gaming for all of us, and it's not restrictive to having to have dice or a computer or whatever anybody thinks gaming is. Tag is something we've all played, or some variation or some childhood activity that's a game. And as we get older, we still want to play and tell stories to each other. And I find it interesting that the world has moved towards accepting collaborative storytelling. And it's something that has not been widely accepted by the literature community and or entertainment community until recently. I mean, hell, if you go back to the 90s, you can literally find people saying that if you play Dungeons and Dragons, you worship demons. That's... Yeah,
and it's kind of funny, because when, like I said, I'm old. I was born in 1975. When I was growing up, when you were playing role-playing games, you were a nerd, and you were tagged as a nerd. I embraced my nerddom, which meant I was a lot of times not necessarily an outcast, but I was not one of the cool guys. But I had people who were closet role players who basically didn't want me telling they were guys, so especially didn't want me telling girls that they were role players. Now things have changed in Denmark. It's been a while since there's been a season of it, but we had a LARP TV show. We have
what's your LARP TV show? Is that the
it's called Berda, Berda, and it's basically every episode is a couple of kids get a LARP role, they get kitted out, and then they go on an adventure, a LARP adventure that is then filmed. I've never seen an episode of it, but I know of it, obviously, because it's role-playing, and it was cool. We have at least one, the closest thing in English would be boarding school, that is run on role-playing principles, where as much of the education as possible involves LARPing. We have another one, which I don't know if it follows the same principles, or if it's more general nerdiness, so both LARP and tabletop and Magic the Gathering and cosplay. I work with kids, like I said, and from time to time we'll pull out a bunch of LARP weapons, and I'll get paid to run around and hit kids with a buffer sword. If you put role player on your resume, then that is an advantage in a number of job-seeking positions. Things like that. And we are recognized as one of like the big countries when it comes to LARPing, and LARP theory and things like that. So things have certainly changed. It was like very, very briefly we had a satanic panic over here. Most of the time was just you're nerds, but things have changed now. I kind of wish if things had been like that when I was young, I think I would have been a lot cooler.
Yeah, I got lucky where I got cool with the nerdy kids and still got women somehow that way. I didn't have to hide it.
Yeah, I met my wife at a LARP. Like I said, Convention of Thorns was my second greatest LARPing experience. Meeting my wife was my greatest LARPing experience. And that was back when here in Denmark we didn't have that many girls doing doing role playing. But I mean, one thing that we can thank Vampire the Masquerade and World of Darkness LARPing and things for is getting more women into the hobby, because it's not a stereotype to say that Vampire the Masquerade brought a lot more women into role playing. That was I remember that as being one of the huge catalysts for bringing women into what was once a very male dominated hobby.
Right, they even do like when they write in the she format.
Things like that.
And just the idea of catering towards stronger role play over mechanics and the concepts of like, I mean, truthfully, Dungeons and Dragons, not super sexy. I mean, it can be. Don't get me wrong, it can be. Vampire in the 90s is like sexy. Like
oh yeah, definitely. And it really and I think nowadays you have women involved in all the various role playing games out there, which is really great. I think it's probably still like more than 50% male dominated, but you have more women, and with more women there comes a greater need for acceptance from us guys, and we get the move that we've had in the last couple of years towards a much more accepting hobby and community. It's like that with every subculture. Suddenly new people come in, and you kind of have to adapt to that. But I like where we're going, and I just want to see this hobby progress towards where everybody feels welcome and safe in it, with the exception of people who are sexist or transphobic or stuff like that, because seriously, I don't need those people.
Yeah, people that want to bring harm, is what, is the I'm better than you, type kind of concepts. And I mean, to be honest, I've gotten that vibe not just from, horrible people, but some people I consider really good friends that are like, I'm a vegan, therefore I'm 10 times better than you because I'm vegan. And it's like, just in general, just be trying to dominate other people is just ridiculous. Like,
yeah, it's like, people have to remember this is a shared experience. We are all in this for the purpose of having a good time. So, figure out how everyone who's involved can have a good time. It's like, I know when I put a group together, if my wife's involved, then we're not doing hardcore horror because she doesn't like that. So
play to your audience.
Group, know the people you play with. Exactly. Find out what they want to do.
And like I said, it's collaborative storytelling, and that's the whole point, is that it's not just you throwing out stuff, it's you building a world with other people and bringing in, like, I find that a game that has more diversity is way more interesting of a story than something that is purely from a male white perspective, and filming just male white characters. Especially when they're like, okay, so we need to have a woman, so we're going to have the guy play the woman, and then when, depending on, some of them do it pretty well, and some of them, it's not a problem.
You can tell it's a guy playing a woman.
Sometimes you can really tell, and sometimes it's really bad. You're just like, okay, you did not represent a woman. You represented whatever the hell you think you want.
Yeah, I've and it's kind of funny looking at how LARPs have evolved. There was a LARP held in Germany recently. I think it was called Harvest Dance. It was called Harvest something. I think it was called Harvest Dance, which was a fairy or fae LARP, not Dark Ages, but the fae mythology, where it was basically fae concept of gender, which means it doesn't matter what you look like. You choose the character you're playing, what gender do they want to be addressed as, if any, which I thought was, because they're fae, they can do that. I thought it was a really cool concept, and it sounded really, really great. And I was like, yeah, you know what, I could go to this LARP, and then it turned out that unfortunately all the food options, they said, and all the food will be vegan. I was like, I sorry, I can't do an extended weekend without eating meat. I simply like meat too much. I wouldn't be able to do that. So that was kind of the reason why I didn't go. A bit sad, but I can understand why they're doing that. Then they cater to everyone, and they can be sure that it's kosher and that it's it is for everyone. But it's just like, yeah, I can't do that. Go that long without eating meat. I'm sorry.
I'm a meatitarian. I'm a protector of the plants that have no ability to defend themselves, by the way, and you guys are just mass slaughtering these poor things and eating them and just being like so above me. But I want to defend them, and also I'm not very good at eating green stuff. So I like meat, but I also understand the idea of, I like Impossible meat or whatever, from Wendy's or whatever, or not Wendy's, what is it? Burger King or whatever has the
Burger King. Yeah, they've got
Whopper.
They got that over here as well.
I like those kind of concepts of meat, because I understand the detriment that there is on the world by us being a huge meat society.
I'm looking forward to vat grown meat when they perfect that, because I don't care if my burger grew on a cow or not. I'm okay with it being vat grown.
Oh yeah.
Like I said, science, technology, sign me up for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I have very strong opinions about food, but I also understand the concept of there's a bunch of cows out there that don't need to be being slaughtered by us, and we don't need to be creating tons of them for just creation of meat and the amount of land and stuff. But in any case, yeah, it's interesting to see the gaming community be one of the communities that really opens up to diversity, and I hope that continues moving forward and that pushes our society forward.
And I think the more mainstream it becomes with things like Critical Role and all the other things that are really making role-playing mainstream, famous people like Stephen Colbert and Vin Diesel, what's his name, The Witcher, and Tom Mac something, I can never do his last name, but these famous people who are role players, they're really bringing it into the mainstream, which is why we also need to make sure that we then represent ourselves well, rather than coming off as a very male dominated, very white male focused game and culture. But it's funny going from when I was young and role playing and it was so obscure, and now seeing how mainstream it is becoming, how much people who don't role play actually know that role playing exists because of these things that have blown up and these people who are talking about it.
Yeah, Yeah, like people like Vin Diesel, I think got to some portion of the world that didn't really know about gaming, and they were like, "Oh, I love Vin Diesel," and then they were like, "Oh, he plays games," like, and I just
Yeah.
like as things like continue like that, it really is we're an open society, or an open gaming society. We want people to come in and we want the jocks, we want the hardcore weightlifters, we want Arnolds, and we also want the geeks and the nerds and the
Yeah.
and everybody. It doesn't matter how you identify or what who you fall in love with. It that has nothing of any kind of connection to gaming. Gaming is about gaming.
And I think
We're
that's,
just all here
I
to
mean,
have
I think
fun.
that's, yeah, I think that's where World of Darkness also has a strength, because first and foremost, it is our world, but with the supernatural, which means that people only have to relate to our world. They don't have to learn a fantasy world.
Mhm.
You also have the idea of it being urban fantasy, which is quite popular with things like the Dresden Files, Supernatural TV show, and then when you say vampire, which is still the biggest and most popular of the World of Darkness games, say vampire, people immediately think of things like True Blood, Vampire Diaries. Vampires are usually always hot, so that can capture people's attention. I think that
And
it's
interestingly, male hot,
stuff.
like not just female, like there's female vampire hot is definitely hot, but male
Yeah.
vampire hotness is
Oh yeah.
top of the except for werewolves now. Now werewolves have a competition due to the whatever book that came out about
Twilight.
uh, you know the yeah.
Yeah, but it's and that's the thing. You want to capture the zeitgeist, and you can use that to hook people. But here in Europe, what's becoming big are these really big LARPs that are happening in Poland. And I think my wife wants to say hi to me. Are you heading to bed, dear?
Yes.
Okay, I'll head to bed when we finished.
Yes.
Fortunately, I don't have to get up early tomorrow. Neither of us do.
Oh, good.
But
Yeah.
yeah, what's getting big in Denmark are these in Europe are these really huge production LARPs. Obviously, the biggest one is College of Wizardry. Kind of want to go to that one day, because that's still going strong, and still looks like an amazing experience.
Interesting.
Is that one that they do it like every week or every month?
No, well, I think at one point they did it every third month or something like that. But that was run by the LARPing company that went belly up, and then the assets of College of Wizardry was sold to another company, and they now run it, I think, once a year. And then there are offsprings. There is one in Germany, and there was also one in the US. I don't know if they still run. And then there are like minor offsprings. I went to one here in Denmark that was just in a cabin in the woods, where it was in the the College of Wizardry universe, and we were all werewolves, except for one guy who was a fox for some reason. But that was a fun thing. That was a rather small LARP with, were we 25 people or something like that, still attended by people from the US, which just blew my mind. That people from the US would fly to Denmark to attend a 20-person LARP in a cabin in a Danish forest. That was crazy.
That sounds pretty epic, actually, but also
that sounds pretty fun.
also, yeah, it's
Yeah, it was-
interesting to see somebody fly all the way across just for for that. Hopefully they had a bunch, like you said at the beginning. Hopefully they had some other plans of things that they did too.
Yeah, they all of them had that, and the reason they came was because most of them knew each other from the College of Wizardry LARPs, so they were getting together with friends that they played with for quite some time. So it's also kind of fun to come as an outsider. Obviously, the character that I created was then someone who knew absolutely nothing, so that I could play off the fact that I'd never been to one of those College of Wizardry LARPs, which was fun because everyone was really, really accommodating and really good at bringing me in. So that was a fun experience. I miss LARPing.
Yeah, it's hard to do during this day and age, but give it 1 year, and I think.
Oh yeah, we'll be back.
Oh, I cannot wait to go to conventions, and I can't wait to go to a bar.
I can't wait to hug my friends again.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been really weird. Only been hanging out with my friends really digitally for a while now, especially since you can't really hang out outside anymore. So it's become all virtual. Luckily, I've adapted my life to virtual conditioning. So.
I think this is going to do a lot for online gaming, online role playing. I think a lot of people have gotten into using the various tools that they're available for that. So it could end up with like cross-national role playing groups popping up all over because people are getting so used to doing virtual role playing.
Yeah, I know that this is the first year that I've really pushed for it at all. We did little things here and there, but I'm loving it because it becomes really easy to record it, and just in general, not even if I don't want to publish it or anything, it's kind of cool to have old recordings of your games that you've played through for memory's sake, more than just,
Well, I never thought about that. Given how my memory is, might actually just start recording my gaming sessions anyway, so I'll actually remember stuff.
Right.
Yeah, I did that for a while. But yeah, in terms of playing long distance, I feel like I'm kind of an outlier because, like, the guys that I went to college with, we just kept playing games, and one guy moved about an hour away, and then another guy moved 10 hours away. So we've been playing online for a long time. In fact, one of those guys lived in China for 4 years. And we got him on audio through, I think, Google Hangouts at the time. And we had to set up like port forwarding and stuff because the great firewall of China and stuff. And so when everything went online, it was like the only thing that changed was so two people came over to my house every week. And so the only thing that changed was they stayed home. We were already doing it over voice chat. So
yeah, well, that's kind of funny. You said someone moved 10 hours away. If anybody moved 10 hours away in Denmark, they would be in another country.
Oh yeah.
we are not a large country.
No, I think it's like you're not even as large as where we live in Wisconsin.
No. Like I said, it is physically impossible to be more than 30 miles away from the ocean in Denmark.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, you add our colonies, in which case we're huge because we have Greenland. You did not get. Yeah, you are not allowed to buy Greenland.
I was just about to say, but we might buy it from you.
Well, he was gonna trade another place for Greenland. That was
Puerto Rico.
Yeah,
something like that.
God,
yeah, no, we have had our islands in the Caribbean, and you guys bought them off us, so we're not back in the Caribbean, okay?
Yeah.
Fun times. The 21st century. What a century.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's the fun way through.
It's kind of interesting. I was before this whole COVID thing started, I was writing. I was working on a book for the Storyteller's Vault called Denmark Chronicles, which is a 4-part chronicle set in in Denmark. I wrote Denmark by Night for the Storyteller's Vault, and then I decided I wanted to do a chronicle in Denmark using that book. And before all of this started, I had planned it out, and the third scenario was going to happen in 2020. Due to the history of Denmark in the World of Darkness, as I've written it, 2020 is a very important year. And then this happened, and I was like, that chapter is going to be so different from what I was originally planning. So I've just spent about a week researching the timeline of COVID in Denmark and trying to figure out how does this affect the vampires in Denmark. And it's like, okay, the lockdown, that's going to make hunting really difficult. All bars, all cafes, all restaurants, all these places closed. How are vampires going to hunt?
Oh no, this all makes sense. I know why the lockdown's got to be stopped now. It's because of all the vampires that are like...
But it's a thing, when nobody has any reason to go out after nightfall because everything is closed, how do vampires who do not have a herd hunt? So I've been trying to figure out how to make all of that work without it just taking over the scenario I'd planned.
Wow, yeah, that's an interesting. I'm so far. If I do anything for writing of 2020, I'm trying to plan it out to be like 10 to 20 years from now, so that I can get my distance.
Yeah, so we can get a perspective on it.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. Although I might have to do something anyways, just to. Still got the Madison Under Siege stuff that I would like to continue beyond what we've done, but yeah, I think that's good point to kind of start wrapping it up here, I think. But yeah, it's been really awesome talking to you, and definitely look forward to hopefully talking to you soon in the future, like off show and stuff like this. This has been really awesome.
Yeah, I've loved it. You've given me an opportunity to do one of my very favorite things, which is talk about myself. I'm so narcissistic sometimes. But yeah, it's been really fun. It's been nice, like I mentioned before we started talking. I'm pretty scatterbrained, so when I do my own podcast, I tend to script myself very heavily. And so it was kind of nice to just do a talk and ramble on in all sorts of different directions. And I've had a lot of fun, and I hope people who are listening found this interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I found it super interesting. I loved it, man. This was really awesome, and thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, sure, no problem. It was a lot of fun, and just quickly, if I can, I would like to plug my podcast one more time.
Absolutely, go ahead. Plug
actually,
away.
So
it's actually on our outline. Is where can people find you online? All of that.
Yeah, so it's called the World of Dark Ages podcast. We have a Squarespace page, which is only really used to host the podcast, because that's an easy way to get it out on various platforms. We're on Facebook. That's the main place to go if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, want to talk to me or Peter, my co-host, which is on Facebook. You just search for World of Dark Ages podcast. And the podcast is available on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts, and I think a couple of other platforms we got it set up on. But basically, if you have a platform that you listen to podcasts on, search for World of Dark Ages podcast. And like I said, it's a podcast about the Dark Ages books, which comes out every other week. Friday at 8 p.m. Danish time, which is Central European time. And then every week we're not doing that. We're doing what we call side quests, which is random talks about historical stuff that is more or less related to Dark Ages, whatever strikes our fancy.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely check that out. I know I'm going to be catching up quite a bit because I have a huge fascination with history personally, and a Dark Ages podcast that goes over um, all of the world of darkness that is in the Dark Ages is just sounds like something I wish I would have found a long time ago, truthfully. Super
Well,
excited.
yeah, I got the idea when there's 25 years of Vampire the Masquerade. They started doing their review of Dark Ages, and I thought this sounds really interesting, but theirs is taking a different approach that I wanted to take. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to do it. And I was advised by a good friend of mine that I needed a co-host, and I was just like, okay, my friend Peter, who is as big a history nerd as me, I'm just gonna ask him, Peter, do you want to do it? And he said yes. So basically, anybody who's listening, if you've got an idea for a podcast, it's not that difficult to set up.
Yeah,
And I have
agree.
absolutely no idea how many people are listening to our podcast, but it seems that enough people are doing it that it's fun to keep on doing it.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly how I feel, and definitely, yeah, just get it out there, man. Everybody loves content, and the big thing is to know that if somebody's appreciating you, that's awesome. Like that, at least that's for me. I'm one of those humans that like my goal in this world. Create cool stories and hopefully somebody listens to it. Be super awesome if in 1,000 years somebody knows of me through the stories that I've told. If not, I'm very happy to just have somebody in 2020, 2021 that just listened to a story and got something from it. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what we've said is we want to, like, our dream is to be walking around at Gen Con or some convention and somebody comes up to us and says like, oh man, are you the guys that make Technogate? And we'd be like, oh yeah. Like, 10 years from now, somebody's like, oh yeah, I found Technogate. It's so good.
Awesome. All right, so just before we wrap up here, we want to just give a few shout outs here. So definitely some of the podcasts that we definitely recommend for you to check out. Midnight Express, which really got me inspired to do a podcast. Definitely check those
I need
guys
to check
out.
that out at some point.
They're really good. I know he's been taking a break lately, but I can't wait till he comes out with some new episodes. Just a really, really cool guy. I've been on his show once or twice. I think twice. I can't remember now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a really fun time being on his show. Utility Muffin Labs. Those guys are really awesome. And definitely go check out what they're doing with their podcast these days. And of course, World of Dark Ages podcast. Check them out. Of course, we've got the creator right here. So if you're wondering what he does and how did you get here, and of course, we're planning on having some talks with the people that make. Mage the podcast, so check those guys out, and hopefully we'll be having them on here soon. If you enjoy what we're doing here, go ahead and follow us or like us on all the different platforms that we're on. We're on Twitch, YouTube, Instagram, which is just filled with all my kittens. So if you like kitten pics, that's Instagram. Twitter, if you want to know when our show is going, I guess, because I don't know how to use Twitter. So. And Mike, do you want to talk about our Technogate game before we wrap up?
You want me to
here?
read this? Want me to read this part?
Yeah.
Okay, let me put on my radio voice. Don't forget to tune in to our Mage the Ascension game, Technogate, on Monday nights at 7 p.m. Central on Twitch at twitch.tv/GoldenAgeStories. And remember, that's Gul'dan spelled Guldan. And what do we have planned for the pod next week, Josh?
So next week we'll be talking with Terry Robinson about Mage the podcast, and hopefully getting a whole bunch of discussions about Mage, because I love talking Paradigm and the universe and how people see it and how they play Mage. I've always found Mage to be one of those games that every GM is going to be very different, and everybody's point of view on Mage is a very different.
Yeah, and I'm kind of nervous because I listen to that podcast, and they are so much smarter than me.
And me.
So much better. at this. So I think Terry is just doing the rounds of, I'll go on everybody's podcast.
Well, yeah, I guess we caught his attention a little bit with our Technogate game.
Hey, nobody else is doing a good technocracy game, so.
I don't know if we're doing a good technocracy, but...
I'll get him on when we talk Dark Ages Mage.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jacob, for coming on, and this has been really awesome. And stay tuned, or if you want to hang out a little bit afterwards, we might hang out a little afterwards.
Yeah, little bit, and then I have to head to bed because it's almost midnight here. So.
Oh yes.
But
yes.
Like I said, I'm in training for next Sunday where I have to stay up really late.
Oh, yeah,
Super Bowl.
Yes. All right, well, thank you so much, all. This is Frozen Fallout signing off.
And this is Motor Roaring. Good night.
Farewell.